Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Yashna, I'll begin with you. We are talking about a very interesting, aspect of healthcare, which is, the role of CMOs here. So, considering the kind of innovations we are seeing, so, how can natural language processing and chatbot technologies be harnessed to streamline and automate healthcare communications? Your thoughts on this?
So to begin with, let's understand the difference between NLPs and chatbots. First, NLP allows chatbots to understand and respond to natural language queries, whereas chatbots can automate tasks such as scheduling appointments or educating patients and even answering the FAQs. So, if we look at scheduling appointments, chatbots can help a lot with this because it can reduce the amount of time for patients and even the healthcare provider to reduce the amount of time that's being wasted or taken away from the important tasks. Secondly, we go on to answering patients' questions. What can be done is there can be a portal made that can help the patients to ask their disease specific queries within the portal. And if all the data is rightly put into the portal, the questions can be answered directly rather than reaching out to the doctor every single time. And third would be answering the FAQs. FAQs like about the policies or the services that are offered uh, by the healthcare providing companies. So all of this can really help to revolutionize the ways that we're working in today's date.
Right, right. Uh, Mr. Vikas, if I can ask you, do you think this digital transformation in healthcare communications is or has the ability to enhance the patient-provider relationship to foster better trust and engagement?
Well, this is an interesting topic. Uh, so before to answer, give this question, I'll just give you my background and
Sure.
where we're coming from. Then we'll be able to answer it very precisely. So we transform a conventional hospital into a smart hospital. The aim of calling this as a smart hospital because we fix the pain points of a patient and also for the hospital.
Right.
So the biggest pain point of a hospital is patient retention.
Right.
And patient retention is connected to the patient pain points. So when we capture the journey of the patients, the pain point starts with, from the registration to the OPD to the IPD and discharge and so on. So we as a smart hospital, what we did is every segment we have fixed automation where these pain points can be solved through technology. Uh, I'll give you a case study which will answer this question. Suppose there is a registration counter. Every hospital has a HIS, but you have to stand and keep saying mother's name, father's name, and all. Right. ABDM has launched the QR code, but still, again, you have to scan the QR, you have to stand the queue. But what we did is that we have done a facial recognition. All you have to just go. It is connected to the Aadhaar system,
right?
And through your face, it will capture your Aadhaar identity. It will feed into the HIS, and your registration is done. This entire process takes almost 1 minute or 30 seconds. Here, a patient who is habituated in waiting 15 minutes just to get himself registered is getting a satisfaction of getting himself registered in just 30 seconds.
Right.
They will build a relationship with this hospital stating that yes, they have implemented the technology, they have implemented the solution of our pain, and next time I'm going to come because my pain is being relieved here, and I'm also going to refer to my friends and relatives. So the relationship between the patients and the hospital is ultimately built the moment we bring in the automation, and that technology solves the pain point of the hospital and also the patient.
Right, right. Very innovative. I think much need. It's much needed this time. Dr. Karan, if you could probably, give us a bit of brief about yourself and also, your thoughts on the measures that can be taken to address the potential biases and inequalities that may arrive, that we, occasionally see how digital transformation in healthcare communication often leads to some situations, that create these biases.
Sure, and that's a very interesting question. Thank you for having me. Let's divide this into two.
Sure.
The first is there is a data inequity that we have. There's a data divide, when we are talking about access to healthcare now, going through a digital platform, it is not easy for everyone. Although COVID has taught us that we have a paternalistic attitude towards people of lower socioeconomic backgrounds to not use technology or to not hasten to actually uptake that technology, but actually that's been proven to be untrue. We've seen that with the success of 2 billion doses given during the 3 years of COVID, people have used the app even if they come from diverse backgrounds. So one is the issue of a data divide, a digital divide that we have in our country. And to overcome that, there needs to be a lot more awareness and needs to be created. We need to create systems which communicate in the language and form that people are more comfortable with. And given the diversity of India, that would mean 20, 25, 30, even 50 models that would need to communicate to patients. So one is the digital inequities that we have in place. The second crisis, and this is the crisis, the first one is not a crisis, that's an issue. The crisis is of misinformation and disinformation that exists out there. Today, it's very easy to access information, but it's very difficult to access credible information. And that's where issues come both on the provider side and also on expectation setting from the families and their loved ones. And one way to overcome that is for healthcare providers, for governments, and the entire health ecosystem to make credible information that is available out there. Let's take a small example. When I search for a headache and when I look at what WebMD has to say, I don't doubt the information that comes from there. I don't doubt what's coming from a Cleveland or a Mayo. How many Indian organizations, institutions can actually lay a claim to such a benchmark that has been set by a few of these? So I think a lot more information needs to flow to patients, to citizens, to people who are not unwell, so that we can get over this entire crisis of misinformation and disinformation. Related to that is something that practitioners need to do, which is that why does a patient go online and not to their doctor? It's because the time that we spend on a consult has gone down drastically. And with that has also the growing mistrust that we have between providers and those seeking help has also caused people to go and look for other sources. I'm very happy if people go for second opinions. I'm very happy if people want to go and get educated. But if the bedrock of that information seeking is actually mistrust, then we have a big chasm that we need to actually cover. So those are three areas where I think digital inequity, misinformation, disinformation, and lack of trust that has built into the system, and there is blame to go all around for that. And I think we need to address those three very specifically if we can overcome this challenge.
I'll stay on to you. If you could probably help me understand that, what sort of healthcare communication can probably be undertaken to, address these challenges?
Yeah, and I think one is, and we've seen this with a lot of big tech. Initially when you saw Facebook, WhatsApp, other platforms, they were only in English. Today, the largest growing aspect of these platforms is actually in the vernacular. And you actively see them pushing this in the vernacular, which is very good because it provides access to information. I'm not getting into whether it's credible or not, but access to information by a wider section of society, and it's their right. Second is we need to make credible information made available at the time when they want it. And usually what happens is our experience has been it's only at a time of crisis that you start accessing information. If somebody's having a stroke, that's the time when you'll start looking up on stroke. And that is not good enough. I think that's where preventive and promotive information needs to go out. We saw that during COVID. We did see that there was a lot of myth busting which went out. There was a lot of good advice which was being communicated, whether it's from the Ministry of Health, from providers, or from other good Samaritans. And I think that really needs to continue. It's a misnomer that India is a society which is well aware about health. It knows about aspects of health, but it does not have a very deep dive information, credible information available to it. Because if that were true, then you would actually have people coming to hospitals in the golden hour if they get a stroke.
Right.
It would be people who would not want to tackle situations that they get of emergency nature at home. So there is a need to actually educate people more to get over that, and it has to be in the vernacular, and it has to be at a time when it is not an emergency, when people can actually absorb that information.
Well said. Yeah.
I would like to add
Sure.
points. Very well said, by Dr. Karan. So there is always a gap between the technology implementation and adaptability by the patients and the crowd. So to solve this, what we have done, I mean, of course, this has to be done through every provider side. What we have done is we have created a one-touch platform where so there is an instance gap between the patient and the provider always, which is arising that if at all I have a heart stroke or I am ill, where to go is the biggest question which comes from the patient side. So what we have introduced two models. One is technology is one. There has to be a human touch. So we have introduced a PCC model, which is called Patient Care Coordinator. They become their virtual relative. That the moment if you are getting confused, reach out to your PCC, and then even if you're admitted or post-discharge, this PCC will be there with you for a month. You consult anything, they will be with you. And second is one touch, in the sense there's an app you can click and then it will connect to any of the call center or the PCC. They will help you to connect to a doctor or an advice where to go, how to get diagnosed and all. So we have tried to solve this problem with these two measures. Of course, more to come. But yes, this is one of the very common problems which doctor has.
Right. I think wonderful information you've shared. When we have data, vast amounts of data floating around, and especially in the healthcare segment, there is a question of patient privacy that comes out. So, Yashna, I'll start from you, and I'll open this question to all three panelists. The key considerations that are needed for maintaining patient privacy and confidentiality when implementing digital communication solutions in healthcare. So, your thoughts.
I think the very first thing is that it's important to take the consent of the patient, and they should know what information is going to be used where and how. That is extremely important. Second one would be using safe communication channels. Meaning, let's say we all use WhatsApp here. We all feel very comfortable using WhatsApp because it uses data encryption. So similar systems should be used when we're creating systems. Third, I would say, would be using a very strong password. Everybody in today's date has so many accounts, right? And we all end up using similar kind of passwords. But a strong password would be somewhere between 12 to 16 characters, having a lowercase, uppercase, a special character, and a number. So that would create a really strong password so that there is no unauthorized personnel trying to use the data. Educating staff about how to use these secure platforms, and ensuring that if there is any data that is being passed on to a third party vendor or there's going to be any communication, the authorities need to make sure that these third party vendors are using safe form of data sharing channels. And of course, having a strong privacy policy that is available to all the healthcare providers and to the patients, so that they know what information is being collected, what is being used, and how it's going to be shared to others. Last but not the least, monitoring these security systems. Right. It has to be audited from time to time, ensuring that there's no data breaching happening.
Right. Dr. Karan.
After such a comprehensive answer, I don't think there's anything to add. What I would like to say is, we often hear about this notion that data is the new oil, and I think when that was coined, it was meant to, make data seem like a resource. Unfortunately, like oil, data has become a commodity, and we see it being peddled, bought, sold, used, misused. So it is a crisis, and in fact, healthcare data is the most hacked data in the world, not just in India, the world over. So this is not an Indian problem. This is not a unique to India problem. This is a global problem. But within that, data privacy is very important, because it's important to underline that if you see various legislations, the Puttaswamy judgment which came out in 2017, Puttaswamy versus Union of India, which spoke about the privacy of data actually being related to Article 21, which is, right to life. So your data is actually so important that as per the Supreme Court, it needs to be protected and it needs to stay private. Now, which means that if you don't do that, you're actually violating somebody's human rights and their fundamental rights. So we need to take that very seriously. Now, what can one do? I think there are two challenges which are competing with each other. One is we're all talking about interoperability. When you make systems interoperable, you're actually opening them up to newer APIs to actually make them transferable from one to the other, and that's where a leak can actually happen. So the point about encryption is becomes doubly important. The second is when we are talking about data being shared, we have to actually let the patient know that this is not something that, though it's convenient for it to travel over WhatsApp, it's not the secure way of doing it, because you will not make transactions, banking transactions, financial transactions over WhatsApp unless until it's secure, which is what they're trying to do now. And third is, I think, given the language barrier, given barriers of education, phishing attacks, very sophisticated hacking attacks that's happening, I think biometrics is one thing that needs to underpin all health data transfers that take place. So if we build on some of the things that she said, and the fact that we need a unifying factor which could be biometric, that's one way of looking at data privacy and how to securely transfer it from one system to the other or one hospital to the other.
Well said, well said. Mr. Vikash, you'd like to add something?
So basically, data privacy has always been a debatable topic if we see from the user end. No matter how much we keep on creating awareness, from the user side, they'll keep on creating a mistake. So to solve this, I think the regulatory bodies have to come into place, and that's where NHA is doing now. By introducing ABHA and ABDM integrations, what they're trying to do is they are trying to bring in the FHIR integration. I'm not sure how much of you know about it, but it's a little technical. FHIR is an integration which is being adapted by other parts of the country as well. It's a standard format where every time a patient data is encountered into a provider side, it will keep on creating a blockchain, and there your data is getting secured. So give an example, in UAE, the moment if I have an app or any healthcare platform, you need to get registered into Ministry of Health, and there is an integration body called Malafi, NAPID and all. It's mandatory that you have to get registered before launching the app or platform. And the moment you keep on generating data, that data gets secured by those platforms. So there is always a regulatory body which comes and secures the data. And I think India has also started adapting that. But to have it as a foolproof, yes, the regulatory bodies have to come in and secure the data end to end.
Right, right. Dr. Karan, I think you briefly touched upon the legal and regulatory implications that need to be addressed.
That they brought into it. Unfortunately, it is still stuck at the level of the parliament, and I think it's gone to a select committee. Hopefully, in the monsoon session, it will become law, and that would help or give a legal cover to data protection for each citizen, and for also healthcare providers to build safeguards which they can say is actually mandated by law. Because up till that happens, we will continue to have a problem of both an overt crisis of data being stolen and also a crisis of smaller healthcare startups or less mature health systems not understanding its importance and therefore leaving it open for sharing or for misuse.
Right. Okay, I'm looking at the time. I don't have much time left, but a quick, probably say, crystal gazing into the future. How do you see healthcare communication? Probably I'd say just 5 years down the line. How do you see shaping up? What new do you think is going to be there? So, anything you'd like to offer on that?
I think most of the people here have probably seen their kids, play games like PUBG here. So over there, we see there's a lot of personalized experience taking place, and there's a lot of interaction of people of similar interests taking place. So what can happen is we can make the learning for the patient more interesting by having some sort of points in the game, or having badge systems or levels, and then personalizing their experience in a way that they can go very disease specific, that and play the game accordingly to them, and they can the game can be customized in a way that the AI systems can probably track the progress of the patient, whether they're taking their medicines properly or not, are they taking it on time, and not
So
just this.
gamification, you're saying,
Yeah,
is
in
yeah.
gamification.
Okay.
Right. And then to add on, it can also add a lot of building a community with people who has social, who've got the same kind of a disease or a problem that they're facing with. In PUBG also, that same thing happens. Online, they meet people and they uh, sort of just gel so well, and they're able to stabilize mentally a lot, and it helps them to build a good community and stay positive about how they're feeling, what they're feeling, and how soon they're going to feel better. Yeah.
Right. Dr. Karan.
I think on communications, we're entering a stage where people are now looking towards healthcare providers, health systems to provide information. But technology will play a big role. I think wearables is one way where health systems, healthcare providers can actually come to know the health status even before you need to you realize it, and we see that with the Apple Watch. I think generative AI. There's a lot of talk about chat GPT. We don't know whether we've created the atom bomb or the antibiotic. It's one of the two or something in between. But I think that will help people access information. It will democratize it to some extent. And third is, I think, the use of voice to get text generated to you for people who have challenges of not knowing language well enough. If they can talk to a system which can actually let them know what the symptoms could be,
And probably in vernacular languages.
and in vernacular languages, I think that's something that is at the horizon.
Mr. Vikash.
So again, communication is again a broader subject in healthcare domain. But seeing from the patient perspective, down the line, I think point of care devices will be taking over the maximum communication. And when we say communication, of course, there are so much of stakeholder in healthcare domain. So we need to build an integrated system where the point of care devices are, communicating among each other, each stakeholder, and then create an integrated data where the data access is happening in each stakeholder's place, and that will simplify the process. Yeah.
Wonderful. I think very pointed insights, looking ahead, and doesn't seem so scary now. I think once we know what we need to get out of this. So thank you so much, panelists. It was wonderful having you with us.